After e4, e5, knight c3, knight c6, f4, in this video we're going through pawn takes, and then knight f3, and now the immediate bishop e7. This is an important move to understand. The bishop is already going to h4 and trying to mess up with our king. That's why the key move now is bishop to c4, because you want the king to be able to move, instead of going to e2 and blocking the bishop. So let's look at these two options. One of them is d6, the other one is the immediate bishop h4, which is the whole point. Okay, let's go bishop h4, here you play king f1. Okay, and after d6, which was going to happen anyway, our opponent decided to first develop the dark square bishop, then d6 so he can develop the other bishop, but obviously he decided to do this move so that he could check us and mess up with our castle. If he had played d6 before, we would have been able to castle. Okay, d4, and after the bishop goes to g4, pinning the knight. Nothing to worry here, bishop to f4. And here let's look at 3 quick replies just to see how to take this game. One of them is bishop to f3, obviously in order to misplace the queen so that the knight can go to d4. We can't allow that. So you have to take with the g-pawn. And the king looks very exposed, but in reality you're completely fine. Queen to d7, going for h3, king to g2, all good. Castle, it looks like black has a good initiative, good lead and everything. Just don't worry, d5 comes now. And when the knight moves, let's say e5, good square for the knight, bishop to b5. Obviously c6 exposes the opponent king and the queens are still on the board. So that wouldn't be recommendable. So after queen e7, queen to d4 comes now, attacking the weakness. And after king to b8, obviously these are all forced moves. Bishop to e3, finalizing the attack. What to do now? Any pawn move here will destabilize the safety of the black king. So after c5, take en passant. And after, okay, knight takes, okay. Now queen to a5, queen to a4. And obviously we're going to smash the opponent king side. We also have double attack over c6, so after the queen goes to c7, doubling the defense over c6. Obviously knight d5 comes, so that means that the queen should have gone to d7. You see, knight to d5, queen d7, but now the knight is pinned, which allows bishop to a7, deadly move. So in this position, earlier we went through bishop takes knight. What happens after, I don't know, developing move like knight f6? Okay, here you have the time to play g3. And now our opponent obviously will have to lose material. The idea of knight f6 is to play knight to h5. So when you take the bishop, the black player can take the bishop in f4. It's actually a very good position. So after bishop e3, now we're still threatening the bishop, the dark square bishop that has to move back. Bishop to e7, and now simply attack the opponent bishop, the light square bishop. Remember, knight g3 is not possible because king to g2, the knight is trapped. And if it gets defended, you're still attacking the bishop in f3. And even if the bishop were to swap here, you could play a move like queen f3. This knight is not going anywhere because you'd be threatening f7 as well. So knight to g3 is not possible. If instead... Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, here, you might say, okay, the knight is trapped, but you can actually take the rook. Well, no, because pawn takes and now the knight is still trapped, and then the black player will have given 2 pieces for a rook. And there's no way to continue. Let's say black castles, then you just take this knight. You're actually completely winning. If black plays queen to d7, still you take the knight, and after queen g4 check, king f2, castle, let's say long, obviously because castling short side is dangerous. Still, rook to g1 was going to come anyway, queen d7, and the rook is going now to g7. This is better for white. So in this position, we're looking at the variation with knight f6. Okay, so you attack the bishop, knight h5. Bishop e3, now you're still attacking. Bishop e7. And now h3. So we notice that knight g3 is not a good move. What happens after bishop takes? Okay, queen takes. We have an attack on f7, also on the knight. So that means that the knight has to go back to f6, so that's not a good move. King to g2 comes now. King is defending this potentially weak pawn in h3 and then preparing to castle manually. And now queen to d7 developing. Rook a to d1. Normal moves. Always put the rook on the same file as the opponent queen. Castle. e5 comes now. So castling was not good because the pawn in d6 now should not take, because then pawn takes back, comes with an attack on the knight, and the rook comes with an attack on the queen. So let's say, for example, take, and obviously knight takes here. You might say that there's an attack on the queen. Let's mention this. Rook takes, knight takes queen. Obviously, you have a Zug, and then you're going to take the knight. So that doesn't make any sense. Now here you might wonder, okay, what if black doesn't play queen d7 and just rather castle this side? Normal side. Okay, rook h to f1. A lot of pressure over f7. This knight here is in trouble. Okay, queen to d7 now developing. Rook a to d1. This comes anyway. What happens after this move? Knight to a5, attacking the bishop. Bishop to d3 is obviously the best place to put the bishop. And after e5, you're completely winning. And the funny thing is that nothing stops e5 from coming. When that happens, you got two unbelievable bishops, powerful queen and rook. This is dead lost for black. And in this position, one last thing we need to look at is what happens after queen to f6. Doubling the attack on this knight, especially threatening to swap everything and simplify, already going for the win. Okay, now the crucial move is knight to d5. You threaten to take the queen with check, so there are no other moves. Queen takes here is completely wrong, because when you take back, knight takes, our opponent's got nothing, you just up material. Besides, you have later you have the ideas like knight c7. So after queen back to d8, c3 now reinforces the defense over the square. d4. So knight f6 developing, attacking this unbelievable knight. g3. Remember, if the knight takes and you take back with the pawn, you'll have an attack on a piece whilst having an attack on another piece here. That means you're winning material. So black will have to play the familiar knight h5. It's the thematic move. Okay, you take the bishop, because in this case you don't care about this bishop since it's defended. Let's look at this move. Knight a5 attacking the bishop. Bishop to d3. And now c6 attacking the knight. How do we consolidate the win? The knight isn't going anywhere that makes sense. Also because the knight is defending the bishop, so the black player is about to recapture material. You just attack. It's a counter-attack, basically. Okay, bishop to e6. And now bishop to g5 is the best move. It's weird because we have a piece hanging and then black can attack another piece. So after f6 you play the key move, knight f4. If knight takes, you can take. If not, you're attacking this bishop with an excellent position. So after taking this and taking this, this knight isn't going to get trapped. A move like queen f6, you just play d5. You're completely winning. If black plays queen e7, then you just take with the f knight into g5, completely winning. So just to finish the video here, you play knight c6, f4, take knight f3, bishop e7, going for the immediate weakness on h4, so develop the bishop. And now what happens after d4? So black gives us a chance to basically castle. I mean d6, not d4. Okay, here we ignore it, and that's funny. The best move is d4, it comes with an immediate attack over f4, so this move isn't still a problem. By the way, bishop h4 now will kind of be like some sort of transposition, so let's not look at it. Let's look at this move, knight f6, bishop f4, and now castle. How to go about here? Queen e2 comes now, and the idea is to castle alongside. Our opponent has decided what side to castle, and we don't mind playing ideas like maybe just pushing the side pawns on the king side. So rook e8, castle. Way too dangerous having a rook on the same file of our queen and king. So let's look at this move. Knight a5, you've seen how to deal with this. d3. Remember, the opponent has a knight in f6, you want to have a bishop in e3, especially because if you still have the two pawns here, you can play e5. Nothing removes a pawn from e5, no matter what. Or even worst case scenario, you can take with the bishop and threatens the knight, and the square h7 becomes a real weakness, especially because this is not a game where our opponent plays knight to d7, defending f6. So that's what we're going for. It's one of the thematic moves. C6. Let's look how to deal with this. King to b1, and after b5, obviously the attack is on our opponent is interested in pushing these pawns, right? And oh, by the way, if black plays queen to b6, this is not as effective. It's threatening nothing. Black is not recommended to play this move. This is not going anywhere. There's basically no attack. And here the best move is h3, g4. And then g5, h4, blah, blah, blah. Obviously, you saw that coming. b5. Okay, e5. That was happening. Let's look at what happens if our opponent, obviously taking here is just deadly. You know, you also got the rook on the same side, opponent queen. You've got potential checks. Knight to h5 attacking our bishop. How to deal with this move? Bishop e3. Don't swap that. And after take. So obviously when the queen goes to c7, here you play the stunner g4. And the knight is trapped. You can say, okay, well, the bishop can take. Yeah, but this is obviously now opening the file on the king. There are two bishops that looks like two knives. It's way too powerful. And now the move is rook h to g1. If black wants to swap, it's fine, makes it even easier. Position evaluated +3 because our opponent will have to sacrifice material in order not to get checkmated. There's no way to stop the attack. Something like f5, you may say black might keep the file close to something, but then h3 will do the job. It forces the swap. And when that happens, this knight is not going anywhere, but okay, you can say, well, he can take this. Bishop takes h3. But our development and position is just unbelievable. White now can play queen to h2. You're winning material. Bishop goes back. Rook takes. Pawn takes back. You don't have to worry about your knight. Because after you're done taking the knight in h5, there's going to be a threat on h7, right? Position evaluated +9. And don't worry about something like... I mean, you can sacrifice anything you want here for these two pawns. If h6, you just play queen g6. You lose the knight, but still... Queen h7 is a forced mate. King moves. And bishop g6 is the killer.